Hello everyone, I'm going to be showing off the changes to the Sith Inquisitor for both the Sorcerer and then the Assassin for all three disciplines for each on the public test server. This is the first time the Sith Inquisitor has been available to see the combat style changes on the public test server for Star Wars The Old Republic. So I'm going to be going through each of the abilities in the tree, reading what they say, so you can take a really good look and see what is going to be available for the Inquisitor for 7.0, the next expansion. So if you get onto the public test server, I've got a separate video about how to first install it, and then specifically how to test the Sith Inquisitor, because we now have the ability to reach level 80. You'll notice this character has been boosted up to level 80. Woohoo! And he's wearing 328 gear, which you can also pick up from a vendor. So if I press K for combat, I will be able to see my new combat styles window, and I can very easily switch between heals, lightning, and madness. So I'm going to start off with madness. I'm going to start off with lightning because it's the best, and that's why. So what shows up on this tree right here, these will be the things that are specific to lightning, the choices that you have to make. So the things that are just kind of inherent to the Sith Sorcerer, or things that are part of the healing or madness specs, won't show up here at all. And we're going to start at level 1, so lightning gets lightning storm. Pretty standard, nothing crazy. And at level 10, you'll get both static barrier, chain lightning, and lightning effusion. Level 15 is where things start getting a lot more interesting. It's the first choice that you get to make. And it's specifically showing a little white line right here. And that white line connecting level 15 to level 10 is saying that these three abilities are connected to static barrier, and they modify how static barrier works, and you can switch between the three. Please keep in mind that this is a work in progress. That's what WIP stands for. So not only is the UI in progress, but the icons are in progress. That's why so many of them look the same. Also, the abilities are a work in progress, and right now players are able to give feedback about the Sith Inquisitor proposed changes. So if you see something in here that makes you upset or you really don't like, you can go give your feedback about that. Just make sure, I highly recommend to go test it out yourself if you are able to. If you are not able to test it out but still want to give feedback, make sure to say that I didn't test this out myself. I saw information about it, and that's what I'm basing my feedback on. So the first choice that you can make affects static barrier. Oh, I lied. I think it affects chain lightning. That's funny. It's just connecting to the wrong one. So forbidden knowledge is the first option. Critical hits with chain lightning build stacks of preserved, increasing the healing done by a natural, spelled incorrectly, preservation, and reducing its cooldown. Second is halted offensive, and chain lightning only affects one target, dealing additional damage. And lastly, chain lightning applies suppressive current to all targets it hits. The next Force Storm detonates the current, doing additional damage. So things have been spell checked and stuff like that, and that's because they wanted to get it out to a point that you could start testing it and giving feedback, not about the spelling, but about how the class actually plays. So the first one gives you basically some more healing. The middle one changes chain lightning, which would normally hit multiple enemies, and changes it into a single target attack, but that should do more damage. And lastly, it makes Force Storm doing additional damage to enemies that you hit with chain lightning. It's kind of interesting. Kind of neat. Okay. At level 20, you get another choice. And it's kind of an unfortunate choice. So the first choice you get is Overloaded Strike. Which normally replaces Lightning Strike as lightning. Oh, weird. You have to choose it. You choose Overloaded Strike, or you choose Cloud Mind, which wipes your enemy's thoughts, instantly lowering your threat. So what's interesting is Cloud Mind is a threat drop. It means that if you're accidentally getting the attention of the boss when you shouldn't be, you can use your threat drop and your tank will take it instead. But for the Sorcerer especially, it's often used as a defensive ability. And in this specific case, the damage reduction seems to be built in. So it says it increases your damage reduction by 25%. And lastly, finish them. Shock deals bonus damage and returns force when hitting targets affected by slows. This can only occur once every 8 seconds, so it's a very weird choice. The first choice is an offensive ability, so Overloaded Strike or Lightning Strike all grown up. Second is Cloud Mind, which would be a defensive plus a threat drop. And the third will be Finish Them, which kind of like a passive ability that affects your shock. Oh, it does have like an activation time attached to it and doesn't say it's passive. Interesting. Okay. Okay. And then at level 25, you'll get Thundering Blast. And this is something we had before, just a key part of the lightning spec. But at level 30, we'll get a choice about like Thundering Blast and what it does. So the first choice is Off Balance. Thundering Blast immobilizes targets for 2 seconds. This can occur once every 9 seconds. So it makes Thundering Blast a stun. Second is Insulating Blast. Thundering Blast grants a stack of Insulating Blast. Increases damage reduction by 4%. Stacks up to 3 times, so it makes it defensive. And Dark Embrace is the third option. Thundering Blast deals bonus damage to stunned targets. So a boost to damage if you were being clever about it. Maybe you could stack it up with something else that stuns in elsewhere in the tree. Okay, all right. On 35, at level 30, you'll also get Forked Darkness. And this isn't an icon I recognize, so I wanted to read it out just in case. Actually, I think we may already have something similar to this. I just don't know the icon. So I'll leave this tooltip up for you guys, and you should be able to read it if you open it up in full screen. And then pause the video. At level 35, you'll get another choice. So the first one is called Overwhelming Force. Shock and Lightning Strike have a 25% chance to grant Overwhelming Force, making your next Crushing Darkness critically hit. Alright, so make Crushing Darkness stronger. The second option is Unlimited Power, and that will be your raid buff. It increases, basically makes the group stronger for a short time. And third is Overcharged Barrier. Increases all healing received by 5% and increases damage absorbed by Static Barrier by 10%. That's another weird choice. So you've got more damage for you specifically, more damage for your operation group, and lastly, increase healing and make one of your defensive abilities more defensive-y. It's very, very weird, yeah. Okay, so at level 40, you'll get Lightning Flash. That's pretty normal. At level 40, you'll also get Convection, which allows Lightning Strike and Lightning Bolt to be activated instantly. Pretty normal. At level 50, you'll get a choice of 3 things. So the first one will be Lightning Barrier. Your Static Barrier crackles with electricity, shocking attackers for damage. And that's just for you, not for allies. So we had something similar in our utilities before. The second option is Sith Defiance, increases damage reduction by 3%. And the last option is Static Barriers you place on yourself erupt in a flash of light, blinding up to 8 nearby enemies that breaks on direct damage. So we've got making your defensive ability do damage to those around you. We've got just increased damage reduction. And we've got Static Barriers becoming a stun, possibly very useful in PvP, I'm not sure. That's such a weird choice too. And we get Forked Lightning at level 50 there. At level 55, you'll get Lightning Bolt. And once again, that's kind of what we had before. It's just an ability, and it's a part of the Lightning spec. At level 60, you get to make a choice, and this one's kind of a hard choice. It's actually made up of 3 different utilities that we could choose from before. The first one is Unnatural Vigor. Unnatural Preservation increases your damage reduction by 15% for 6 seconds. So basically helps you heal yourself. Second is Immersion. Force speed grants immersion, removing all movement impairing effects and granting immunity to them for the duration. This is an ability that's very well loved by players. Basically, when you use force speed, you can no longer be stunned on the ground or stuck in one spot, so it's very good for any fights that require a lot of movement. And last option is Surging Speed, which reduces the cooldown of force speed by 5 seconds and makes it last longer, and Polarity Shift makes your movement speed go faster. It's just a big mix of things. We did have these as utilities before. Your level 70 choice is going to be the hard one that we've been discussing, and this level 70 choice is actually going to be the same across Heals, Lightning, and Madness right here. So it doesn't change no matter which of the 3 specs that you choose, and that actually goes for your level 60 choice and your level 80 choice as well, it looks like. It's only earlier in the tree that your specific discipline will matter. So the level 70 choice is hard for every class. It seems this is kind of the pattern it's following. So here are your 3 choices for level 70. So you're going to have Extrication, which is your pull. You can pull a teammate out of harm's way or help them reduce their threat. Your second choice is Volt Rush, which is kind of weird. Volt Rush is mostly useless to most damage-based sorcerer disciplines. I'm sure you could find something to do with it, but in general, most players actually take it off of their bars if they're very good at combat. And lastly, the third choice is Force Barrier, and Force Barrier is actually considered a very, very strong ability. It basically puts up a bubble around you. You may be familiar with what it looks like. Can I click it from here? Where's my bubble? There we go. It's this one, the one where you put your arms in the air and you basically become invulnerable to damage for about 8 seconds, and nothing can really hurt you when you have that up. So it's considered a very strong ability, and Extricate is considered a very useful ability for pulling people. Also just kind of generally fun to mess with your friends and pull them around while they're waiting. And Volt Rush is currently considered a useless ability, but we're unclear if they're going to adjust it and make it no longer useless. And I haven't really been able to figure out if it's changed a lot or not, and it'll be very kind of hard to test until we have our proper gear and stuff like that. So you'll be able to have to choose between those 3. And that's going to be a very hard choice. I think in most cases, players like the quick and easy choice is going to be the Force Barrier, but I think there's going to be some fights where Extricate is more useful, or at least to have one team member on your team who can pull. We are also kind of talking about oh yeah, the Volt Rush is kind of useful if you're heals. Then you can do some funky stuff if you have that set bonus, but we have no idea if that set bonus will or was it a tactical? Either way, we have no idea if it'll work or exist in level 80. I think it's a weird choice, no matter how you look at it. So I think the easy choice is going to be Force Barrier, but I'm really going to miss my pull. I use it a lot to mess around. I use it a lot to help friends who are lost or confused as well. Like, oh, my friend's going the wrong direction. No, get over here. And lastly, at level 80, you'll choose between Force Mobility, so which allows you to cast Thundering Blast, Innervate, and Force Leech while moving. Oh, that's a choice. Oh, I need that one every time. I don't even know what these are. The second choice is Corrupted Flesh, which reduces the damage taken from all periodic effects by 15%. And lastly, Conspiring Force. Targets affected by your affliction are slowed by 30% for its duration. And you get Convulsing Currents. That's actually not something new. So you don't really get any new abilities at level 80. Instead, you just get a choice of some old utilities. Yeah, I think I'm going to choose Force Mobility every time. I can't see why you would possibly choose the other ones. Force Mobility, basically, in a lot of the harder fights, you have to move around a lot, and being able to cast stuff on the move, either as a DPS or as a healer, makes things a lot more fun. And of course, the less downtime you have from doing abilities, the more damage or the more healing you can do. I, especially as a really, really bad healer, need to be able to move around and smash my heal buttons at the same time. So next we're going to go check out the Madness spec. And most of the differences are down at the bottom of the tree. So once again, those top choices like being able to choose between Extricate, Bolt Rush, and Force Barrier are the same. Choosing between Immersion and Natural Vigor and Surging Speed are the same. And at level 80, Force Mobility, Corrupted Flesh, and Conspiring Force are the same. So let's take a look at Madness at level 10. So of course Madness at level 1, they get their ability called Madness. Big shocker there. And at level 10, you'll get Death Field, and you'll also get Static Barrier, and we're seeing that little connecting line again saying your level 15 choice will affect your level 10 abilities. So this one says, first choice at level 15 will be Unrelenting Affliction. When a death mark is consumed, there's a 50% chance for a death mark to not be consumed. Okay. Do more damage, basically. Second is deals single target damage and applies death marks. Increased lifesteal by 5%. Oh, is that like an ability? Oh, it replaces Death Field. So Death Field instead becomes a single target attack. And lastly, Sustained Corruption. When a death mark is consumed, you are healed for 1% of your maximum health. So I'm kind of curious. Madness I have a little less familiarity with than I do with Lightning, but Madness I've always thought of as a kind of spec that has a little more AoE to it. You can hit more enemies and do more damage that way, but very interesting. If Death Brand does single player damage, that might shake up that whole spec and what it's good and not good for. Very, very cool. Okay, so for level 20, you get a choice of 3 things. So kind of interesting. You'll notice in Lightning, you have the ability to have Cloud Mind at 20. You'll also have the ability to have Cloud Mind at 20 in Madness, but you'll also be able to choose between Overloaded Strike and finish them as well on Madness. Oh, what? That's so bizarre. What are you gonna do with these? Alright. Well, that's your options. You got Cloud Mine, which is your threat drop, Overloaded Strike, and finish them as that are the same as we talked about earlier. At level 25, you're gonna get Creeping Terror, kind of like you would normally. But at level 30, you get to choose between 3 abilities that will affect Creeping Terror. So the first one is Critical Movement. Critically hitting with the initial hit of Creeping Terror reduces the cooldown of Force Speed by 3 seconds. Oh, weird. I guess it helps you use Force Speed a little more often. Second option is Creeping End. The applying Creeping Terror reduces the cooldown of Recklessness by 2 seconds. This effect can only occur once every 5 seconds. I guess you get to use Recklessness more often. Can be a damage boost, I guess. And third, Downfall. Dealing damage with Creeping Terror consumes 2 death marks, increasing the damage of Creeping Terror. Interesting. Potential boost. Maybe you can combine that with the one that makes it so death marks don't be consumed. At level 35, you have another choice. The choices are Overwhelming Force. Shock and Lightning Strike have a 25% chance to grant Overwhelming Force, making your next Crushing Darkness critically hit. Woohoo! More damage. Level 35's second choice is Corrupted Defense. Dealing critical damage with your damage over time abilities increases your damage reduction by 5% for 10 seconds, stacks up to 3 times. And the last choice is your Operation buff, your unlimited power that buffs up your whole group. So that's going to be a kind of weird one to make there too. At level 40, you'll get Force Leech, just kind of like you had before. At level 50, you'll have a choice. And this is going to be kind of a choose one defensive thing. So the first option is Lightning Barrier. Your static barrier crackles with electricity, shocking attackers for damage. So it turns your defensive into a bit of an offensive too. Second choice is Sith Defiance, increases damage reduction by 3%. And your last choice is Backlash, which this is a very similar choice as we saw for Lightning. It turns your static barriers into a blinding light that blinds your enemies when they explode, but it breaks on damage. So at level 55, you'll get Demolish, which crushes targets with a devastating force, replaces Crushing Darkness. Really? Alright. Okay. And at level 60, you start those same block of choices that we talked about earlier. So kind of interesting. I don't know. Like I said, Madness is one of the ones that I play the least. So alright, let's go hop over to Healer, and Healer will be quite different. We're kind of seeing the pattern of when you have a combat style that has a healer and 2 damage options for disciplines, the Healer is quite different. So starting off, at level 1 you get a passive, congratulations, but this is kind of something you had before too. So at level 10 you'll get your Dark Infusion, and you'll get your Static Barrier, just kind of like you would before. And then at level 15 you get to make a choice. So your first option is Sustained Corruption, and it says Dark Infusion applies Fueled Corruption, which heals the target for 12 seconds. The second thing, so it kind of turns Dark Infusion into a bonus heal over time ability. The second option is Rally. A Dark Infusion hits 1 additional target within 10 meters, so it turns your Dark Infusion into a heal that heals 2 people instead of 1. And the last option is Haste. After casting Dark Infusion, you are granted Haste, making your next Dark Infusion instant. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. Ooh, all of those kind of sound interesting. I'd be interested in trying them all out, and I'll be very curious to see what theory crafters come up with as being the best one for healing. Or it could be different, I guess, depending on different situations, but I have a feeling 1 is probably a clear winner. At level 20, you get to make another choice. So the first option is Dark Speed. Dark Heal increases the movement speed of the target by 50% for 6 seconds. Not super important unless you're healing somebody who needs to go zoom real fast. Second option is Cloud Mind, and that's your threat drop and damage reduction. That one sounds like it's going to be pretty useful. Let's see what this last option is. Dark Power. Dark Heal has a 50% chance to cause your resurgence to tick twice. So that might be super useful for healing too. You'll probably be choosing between Cloud Mind and Dark Power here at level 20. At level 25 you pick up Innervate, and at level 30 you pick up ability that affects Innervate. So there's the first option is Dark Resurgence. Innervate spreads your resurgence to heal to nearby allies. So it'll make it an AoE ability, I guess. Innervate will hit multiple targets. Second option is Polarized. Polarity Shift increases the healing done of Innervate by 3%. Interesting. So it makes Innervate get boosted by Polarity Shift. And lastly, Corrupted Bastion. Innervate builds stacks of Corrupted Bastion. Each stack increases the healing done by Dark Heal and Dark Infusion by 3% per stack. Max stacks 3. So that's going to be another really interesting choice to make. And this is something in addition. I don't think these were options that we had before as a healer. So that's going to, this is very the one that interests me the most so far. We're going to have that tree to look at, that tree to look at, that tree to look at as healers. So at level 35, we have another choice to make, as always. So the first option is going to be Unlimited Power. That's just your raid group. Raid buff. And then the other choices are Unhindered Resolve. Channeling Innervate grants a stack of Unhindered Resolve. Each stack grants 2% damage reduction per stack. Max of 3 stacks. So it kind of makes it Innervate a defensive ability. Second is called Death's Embrace. If a friendly player has Resurgence applied to them and are killed during the duration of Resurgence, you are granted Death's Embrace, making your next reanimation or Dark Infusion instant. That's super cool. Oh my gosh, that is super cool. Okay, so I was like, what if you stealth out and respawn them? But that's not what that means at all. So Innervate, let's say your friend's about to die. You could slap Innervate on them, and then you could reanimate them right away, right? You could get them back to life right away. That's very new and interesting. That's definitely something we're going to have to look into for sure. And of course, this is just a bonus to healing, basically. Now at level 40, You got Revivification, which is your circle heal, right? Yeah, that's your little circle heal. At level 50, you'll have another choice, so you can choose Lightning Barrier. That turns your defensive static barrier into an attacky type of thing. You got Sith Defiance, increases damage reduction by 3%. And Static Barriers, which will blind your enemies. I think for healers and operations, this one's going to become a super easy choice of just kind of reducing your damage reduction so you take less damage. I guess if you really want to hurt some people, you can put the Lightning Barrier as your choice. If you want to do more damage and you're not taking a lot of damage, you could choose this. It's a little bit of an easier choice than some of the other two were. At level 55, you'll get your Roaming Mend. That's your heal that bounces between different characters. And at level 60, 70, and 80, you'll be making some of those same kind of hard choices. So especially for the healer, you're going to have a hard time choosing between Extrication and Force Barrier. Especially because the healer is often the one who's expected to use their force pull to save somebody, especially during the fights where we've kind of decided that yes, someone should always be pulled during this part of the fight because it just helps a lot. And I guess figure out and decide if Bolt Rush is going to be something that healers use, or if we're no longer doing that, right? So that was the 3 different disciplines for the Sith Sorcerer, and I'm going to be going over the Assassin in a second video. Remember, this is all on the public test server. This is still something that is not set in stone, so if there's one of these choices you really hate, for example, I think the one we're going to be discussing the most is Force Barrier and Extricate, and possibly Force Mobility, don't tell them that this one's such a clear choice. Shh, don't make them change it. You can give that feedback on the public test forums. See you guys later.